Okay.
Yay! Hello and welcome. I am Lindsay Smith. I am the founder of One Idea Press. And today I'm really excited because we're going to be in conversation with one of our One Idea Press authors, Jennifer Collins. Jennifer is the author of The Inbetween is Everything. And I'm going to read you a little bit about what the book is and who Jen is so you can get an idea of what she's all about. And we're going to just have a conversation about some of the concepts in the book and in life in general. So, Jen was a busy mom and entrepreneur when she found out she had stage 2 breast cancer. Rather than a wake up call, it became one more thing she had to fit into her already packed schedule. A couple years later, Jen was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer and given a dismal prognosis. Through her faith and resilience, Jen embraces what lies in between planning and uncertainty, good days and bad days, and ultimately in between life and death. The in between is everything is a celebration of resilience in the face of knowing what's to come, the choice to continue to give, and battle the odds through every uncertain day. And I just need to say, Jen is just a huge inspiration. And before this, as we were prepping, I was even just saying how her philosophy in life and in the in between is everything has helped me in so many ways and has helped me think like, oh, something happens, but how can I see the beauty in what is now? So thank you, Jen, for writing this book and being as amazing as you are. And
Oh, thank you. I like to hear that people have, gotten something from the book and take it with them. You want it, to have an impact, a lasting impact.
absolutely.
Thank
And
you.
I think even, when you first came to us and we were talking about a book and an idea, this concept resonated with me so much. I know, when you came to us at first, you had this idea, you wanted to write your story. But to me, when I started reading it, I realized that the big piece pulling it all together was that the in between is everything.
Mhm.
We're busy, we're running around, we're doing all of these things, taking care of everyone. But really what life is about is those in between, almost mundane moments, but that are really beautiful.
Right,
Um,
right.
so I don't know, putting you on the spot, if you want to even just share a little bit about that, about your journey to writing the book and how that kind of concept evolved and how you embrace that in your everyday life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always written. I've always liked to write. And then, I wrote in my diary when I was a little child, and then I filled up tons of 3 ring binders all through junior high, through college. And then, life gets in the way and you get busy. And I kind of stopped writing. I don't know that I ever considered myself a writer, but when I got sick the first time, I had a lot of downtime and I started writing again. And I started a Facebook page to kind of just share medical updates with, friends and family. And of course, since I'm, a writer at heart, I wrote little stories and things that, more than just a simple update. I wrote some more personal things. And when I was kind of through treatment the first time, I didn't really write on the page anymore. And people were coming up to me and saying, I really miss your page. You should write a book. And I just thought that was kind of crazy because who would care to read my story? And I was just so excited to be finished with my cancer treatment. Just kind of put it on the back burner. But then, I started writing a blog and just thought, you know what, I have this calling to write this story because I was starting to see once I was done with treatment, like people were complaining about everything. And I had this new perspective where I was just happy to be finished with treatment, happy to be alive, and to see everyone just complaining about little things and missing all the good things in their life. It really bothered me. And I didn't want to complain about people, but I wanted to kind of share what I learned and share this new perspective, and help them see that they were missing so much. And you don't want to spend your days like focusing on all the things that go wrong, and just it, you just need to look at things a little differently. So this book just kind of was in my heart, and I wanted to share my journey, of course, but then it did kind of evolve. And after talking to you, like you guys helped me kind of put that all together. Like I think it was already in there, but you helped draw it out. And so I think you told me that when I wrote, the first draft, it was more like a diary kind of thing, like I've done forever, just kind of listing what happened. And like you guys kind of drew out that theme, and that really was in there. I just didn't really see it yet. So yeah, you guys helped me kind of pull that out of the story. And I think it really made a huge difference.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I'm happy to just pass on everything that I learned through, what I went through.
Mhm. And I
And
will
still
say
going through.
you are a naturally excellent writer. So
Thank you.
I will say that I just enjoyed reading, just breezing right through it, but also not breezing through it it was more like, wow, like I wanted to keep reading and I want to keep going. And you really were able to feel the emotions, like so many little stories too that you've told, and maybe you could share one, but just how people perceive someone that is sick or that has a diagnosis, and um just things that they're afraid to say or do around you, or the things that people do say that are
Mhm.
shocking. And so I don't know if you have an example or if you want to share one that just now makes you chuckle, but maybe at the time you were not okay with it.
Right. Well, I did, and that was something that one of your editors had kind of uh, told me to do, was to add some of these things that people say to you, because I think people don't realize the things they're saying, and then they are usually, it's not malicious. They're not trying to be rude or insensitive. It's just sometimes people don't know what to say, and then they end up saying the wrong thing. So at the beginning of each chapter, I shared some things, some like different things people have said to me, and you get a lot of from people who don't have any medical background whatsoever. You'll get a lot of just different theories they've heard, or things you can eat that will wipe away cancer, things you shouldn't eat. So you kind of have to smile through that, and I just kind of accepted it and moved on. But I still, listen to my doctor. And a lot of people say, when they think that you have a bad diagnosis, or death is a weird thing to talk about. And a lot of people would say things like, oh, well, have you done the math, or how old would your kids be, and things like that, where and I don't listen to statistics. I think a lot of the statistics are outdated. But you know you don't have to ask a person who's been told that by their doctor if they've done the math. Believe me, we've done the math. And so it is kind of funny how people relate to it. And the book kind of also explores like relationships during cancer, or during any big life happening. But people don't know what to say, or they don't know what to do. And some people jump in, and they're people you don't expect jump in and help you in many different ways. And then there's other people that you expected to be there, and they're not. So it's surprising. And so the book, I think, talks about that too. It kind of puts into light just our relationships, and how people kind of come and go in your life. And I feel like people are put in your life at the right time, and to do whatever. And they always say they're either they're a blessing or a lesson. So you just kind of have to learn to take it for what it is, and also give people some grace, because I wouldn't have known what to say either if I was on the other end. So you can't get upset about it, but it is something. It's a big part of it, though. People do say some insensitive things, some silly things, and you
One
know.
one of the things that I remember is, speaking of relationships, was, I believe, like a lot of friends would distance themselves
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want to talk about the bad things that were going on in their life, like if they were
Yeah.
getting a divorce, or if something happened, because they're like, this pales in comparison, kind of just like that comparison trauma, like comparison journey that people do. And so, but you kind of were on the flip side of, I want to know about your life. It keeps me
Right.
connected.
Right. Right. I mean, these are my friends. Like, I still want to hear what's going on in your life. And I did. I had a really good friend go through a divorce and she never told me. Then I would have people say things like, oh, I don't want to complain about that to you. Just like, and I always said that you can't put a score on what people are going through. Like, everybody's going through something. So I don't, yeah, I never wanted people to censor themselves or feel like, you know, you couldn't tell me something that was going on in your life because I was going through cancer. But then on the flip side of that too, it would get annoying when people would complain about like a headache or a stub toe or something like that when, it's like, okay, well, I wish I just had a headache or stub my toe, but still, if you still want to hear everything that's going on with people and about distancing themselves, yes. I think that's just natural. Like, no one knows what to say or they don't want to say the wrong thing. And a lot of times they just assume you're sick 24/7 and they don't want to bother you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of ties into that as well. So, and I always told people, you can still call me and leave a message. If I can't answer, I won't answer. But if I can, I will, or I'll call you back later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because before we started this call, I was like, you're like, so how are you doing? I'm like, well, had a little bit of a sewage issue, have to
Yeah.
replace all my lines. And I was like, but you know what? I think about like your book and something is like, it is a big thing. It's a big expense.
Expensive. Yeah.
I didn't expect, but at the same time, like I really thought about you and your journey, even though they're completely two different things. I really think that the philosophy of embracing those moments can be, you kind of, instead of thinking of it as like, oh, this is worse than this,
Mm-hmm.
it's just in general, you're always going to have things that happen. And
Right.
so how can you do this no matter what? Like, how can you embrace that kind of philosophy no matter what? And I think you do a really good job of showcasing that throughout the book, that it's not just this one big thing. It can be anything that you perceive as life-changing.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think so I really love that about the book. And I'm curious to know, when you talk about the in between is everything, like I obviously have been talking about it, but what are those moments? Like, what are the things, what does that mean truly to you? Like, what are those in between moments that people can look for and gravitate to when things become uncertain in any area?
Well, I think we all get caught up in the big stuff, like the big celebrations, the milestones, and when you're too caught up in, or just life gets busy, and when you get too caught up in all that big stuff, you miss all the little stuff in between. So you get caught up in, like, even like a wedding. I mean, people plan a wedding and they get, sometimes a little crazy with everything and it's tedious and there's a lot, you stress yourself out to the point that you don't enjoy the process. And the process should be fun too, not just the wedding day. That's one day. So, kind of that same philosophy just in your everyday life. Like, it doesn't have to be something big, it could be just the little moments at the dinner table with your kids, or, going to get ice cream. It doesn't have to be a huge celebration or a big milestone. We need to pay attention to what's right in front of us, like, all the time. We sometimes tend to just forget about the little stuff because we're too consumed with all the big stuff, and we're like so enamored with being busy. Like, everybody wants to be busy, like it's a good thing, and it's not a good thing. Yes, you need to get your stuff done and check things off the list, but you should enjoy checking them off the list too.
Mm-hmm.
I think people forget to enjoy just the everyday.
Mm-hmm. I love, one of the things I'm thinking about from your book is the I believe it was a birthday party that you were planning, and it was like you just were so like you were so focused on the planning and making sure everything was perfect and the food, and like And then you were like pre-thinking and worrying about cleaning up afterwards and making sure everything goes away, that like you take a step back and you're like, I didn't even
enjoy the party. Right. Yeah, yeah, 1 year, because I think I put both years. 1 year I was just crazy, and you're worried about people spilling things and everything being perfect and everything matching. And then the next year I just had a whole new perspective, and I just got to enjoy it, and it just made a world of difference. You get too caught up in all that other stuff.
So if someone is like that in their life right now, just caught up in all of the things and the checklists and trying to, do all of the things, very busy, go, go, go. What's a starting point that someone like that could start and say, you know what, this is my one beautiful life that I have. What could I do today? Basically, like what's one tiny thing that I could infuse to really embrace that in between?
I think what we have to do is figure out what's important. Like I always say that if you asked me before what was important, I would have told you all the right things. I would have said my friends and family and just, everything that focus on what matters. But then if you looked at my calendar, you would see that I was doing nothing but work. Like all my time and energy was going into work and other stuff that wasn't all that important. So the two didn't really match up. So I think people can take a step back, take a deep breath, take a step back, and kind of think about, what's important in my life, and then think about where all your time and energy goes, and try to make some lifestyle changes or just little changes that will, skip mopping the floor and go read your kids a story at night. Or, when they ask you to go to the park, like don't think about, oh, I have all this stuff to do. Take them. If you've always wanted to go see this, you see a movie, or go learn some new skill, like take the class. You can make the time if you want to. We're still in charge of our days, and it's all about choices. So I think we just need to figure out what is important to us, and then make sure that we're fitting that in every day. And I always tell everybody that they should do something they love every day. Just one thing, even if it's 10 minutes, just something that they love to do. Fit it in every day. And even if that's reading for 10 minutes, or taking a bubble bath, whatever, just one thing every day. So when you go to bed, you know that you did something that you enjoyed that day.
And it's not, I feel like like 10 minutes, like how many times do you just scroll on your phone?
Right. And a half hour's passed. Right.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that the time is there usually, know, it's just a matter of how we perceive it and what we choose to do with it. And also there's certain constructs that I think, society has put, like the 40-hour work week or things like that, where, they're finding that even that is not as productive. Like people aren't productive in a 40-hour work week, just, because most of the time, like, I think it's like 4 or 5 hour, like 4 hours or something is like the like where you can put the most focus.
Yeah.
And so even just thinking of that, I think instead of thinking you have to fill everything, how can you, best utilize the time?
Right. And I think the pandemic has kind of helped us see a lot of that too. We learned a lot of lessons through this time, that we don't have to spend all this time doing these things. And some, there's always that joke that like this meeting could have been an email. And there's a lot of truth to that, or just to cut down the travel time. Yeah, I think that we all should have learned some lessons during the pandemic, and I hope that those lessons stick, as we start to move forward. But my fear is that everybody's going to jump right back into the same mess we were in before.
Yeah, it's interesting going kind of like back into the world, because I'm a very I'm a very introverted person in the sense that I need my time and space. Yes. Like I love my time and space, but also I can be extroverted and outgoing and things like that. And I found even the past few weeks, as things have opened up in full capacity here in Pennsylvania, that I'm like, oh, like, I'm not ready for all that energy just yet.
Yeah, me too. I'm feeling the same thing. I'm feeling the same thing. It's like, I don't know that I'm ready to be around all the people already and just like getting right back into a regular routine. I'm just not sure I'm ready either.
Mhm. Yeah, and I imagine for you this past year, the pandemic, being able to spend time with your family was probably just invaluable.
Yes, yes. I feel like it was a blessing. I was one who I wasn't complaining, especially those first 2 weeks when we were all shut down. The kids didn't have karate, there was no softball, there was no running. It was wonderful for me. So, yes, I've enjoyed it. And my kids stayed home and were remote this year too. So, gave me a lot of extra time. So, yes, I did consider that a blessing.
That's great. And I know that your faith is very important to you. And so
Mhm.
you want to just share like how that plays a role into, your message and your book and what you've been through.
Well, yeah, I did rely on my faith a lot through everything, and that's like interlaced throughout the book. And I often wonder, I couldn't have gotten through it without it. So yeah, through the book, I kind of explain how I feel that God worked through all these little things, like all these ways, and not that I wasn't, a faithful person before, but what I went through just opened my eyes to how God's hand is in everything. And so the book kind of talks about just how, he's helped me through all of this. And, I rely on my faith just to keep going every day. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So,
Yeah. There's so many, I feel like I've already shared like stories from the book, but there's another one that I love. We'll let people read it. This will be
yeah.
a hanger, but it was one very early on, this story that really, it's just one of those things that you look back on and you're like, wow, like this person that came in and
In the beginning of the book.
yeah, like something I would brush off. Like this
Yes.
person came in kind of in my business. They came in your business. It was something you would normally brush off, but for whatever reason that day you didn't. You said, "Sure, I'll sit down with you," and then I won't give it away because you have to read the book. But this conversation
Was huge.
ended up being a huge, part of your story and a help to you when you were diagnosed. So
Yes. Yes.
so I loved that in the book, also seeing, because I think we all have those moments where you look back, like, you look back and you're like, wow, I like, if it wasn't for that, like this really set me up. Or
Yeah, and it could be a long time ago. Yeah, it's crazy. And what's funny is that particular chapter, I belonged to a writers group and I had them read, and they read just the one chapter with that, what you're talking about. And a couple people said, I don't know if you really need that in there. Like, that might be something that you could take out. And like, but they had no idea what was to come. Like, I said, no, it needs to stay in there. You just have to stay tuned.
yeah, absolutely. And I really love, I mean, I know that we put your book out, so I am partial to it, but I do love the pacing of the book, because there's all these, which is the essence of the in-between is everything. There's all these little stories and moments that have connections to one another that you see, like you just see the bigger picture in things. And I think as a reader, it also helps you understand in your own journey. You don't have to go through a terminal illness to feel or to make those connections about other things that happened in your life. And I love that, because I remember all these stories. I haven't read this book for a while, but I remember all these stories because they're so impactful. And I really love that about the book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did. I shared a lot of just like family moments and just small little things, but they all kind of were connected. And I kind of related them back to how I would have felt before. Because I always say I'm a different person from August 30th to the 31st, because I was diagnosed on the 31st of August with cancer. And it was just like a light switch went off. So there's a lot of back and forth and thinking back to the way I did used to think about things and then the way I think about them now. And those stories kind of help illustrate that.
Mm-hmm. And I really love that, again, you do not have to have a big life shattering event diagnosis in your life to have that wake up call and say, you know what,
Mhm.
I want things to be different. I want to enjoy the time with the people that I love. I think, what are the three regrets of people? It's like that they didn't do what they wanted to do. They
Mhm.
didn't spend um, enough time with their loved ones. And I forget what the third one is, but
Yeah. It's never work. It's never work. Right. Right.
it's never, I wish I worked an extra 10 hours a week.
Exactly. It's never that. It's never that. Right. And I always say that you don't want to leave this world like wanting or wishing. Like, don't leave this world like wishing you did something or, still wanting to do that thing you've been talking about doing forever. Like, we only have today. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not here. We're not promised tomorrow. So do it today. Stop putting everything off. And we're really good at like, oh, well, when I get this promotion or when I get a house or when I like have my first child. Like, we put all these like stipulations on the things we want. And most of the time, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. So let's do some of those things now instead of waiting until you do this or until you do that. Just go out and enjoy it. Do
Mhm.
something that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like even you writing this book and launching this book and doing this talk now, I mean, I feel like it's a testament to what you live by, which is, I still don't know if tomorrow is promised, but I'm going to put this book out. I'm going to
Right.
keep showing up and doing these things because, it's what I enjoy doing and it's what I want
Right.
to do. So I feel like you have embraced the full process of.
Yes, I'm trying to. Sometimes I feel like I need to go back and read my book myself to like, keep me going, but take my own advice. Sometimes I have to remind myself. So, yeah, cuz right now I'm still going through treatment. It's not easy and I don't know, what's going to happen in the future, but I have now and I want to enjoy every moment that I have while I have it. And I say I'm going to do as much as I can while I can. So, yeah, we didn't really get a whole lot of time to, market this book when it came out because, my cancer came back again a little more, it was, just a little more aggressive and we didn't really get a lot of time, but I'm feeling better now. So like I'm excited and this is something that I really, this is a dream come true. And while I can get it out there, I want to get it in as many hands as possible because I just want people to I want people to start realizing that all this little stuff is the good stuff and to
Yep,
stop missing it. And that's the whole reason I wrote the book. So,
I
yeah.
love I love it, and I love everything about your philosophy. And look, I use it every day. I feel like I'm always like, oh,
Good.
what would Jen do?
That's funny. Yeah.
So to wrap up, because this has been an amazing conversation, to wrap up, I know we've talked about a lot, but what's one last piece of advice? I feel like you gave some, but if one last piece of
Yeah.
advice for people, you know, to leave us with in this conversation, I'd love to know what you're thinking.
Well, I think sometimes when bad things happen and we just start, going in this downward spiral and everything's awful and that's all we can see is like the bad stuff. And then it clouds our view of some of the good stuff that's still there. So I think well, we have to, and you almost have to train yourself to do it. And I feel like I'm at that point that I can usually find something, but I think you have to always look for stuff. There's joy in every situation, maybe little, and it may be this tiny little speck, and you may have to look really hard to find it on some days, but there's always something to be grateful for, and there's always something to find some joy in. And I think in those dark moments, that's what we have to focus on. So I think if you just start looking for those things and paying attention to those things, it makes those dark things maybe not so dark because we see that there's a lot of pokes of light coming through too. So I would say, other than doing something you love every single day and stop putting things off, I would say start looking for something to be grateful for and start looking for, the joy in all around us because we tend to get bogged down by the bad stuff. And there's always some good stuff out there too.
I think my philosophy is going to be find the little speck.
Yeah, there you go. It might be a little speck. That's okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it'll be a bigger speck. It's all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Jen, you're the best. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. And where can people find your book at? Which we put it out so I could say, but I want you to say it.
Well, you can find the book at One Idea Press. It's available on the website, but then also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and at several other bookstores online.
Yeah. And if you buy it from oneideapress.com, Jen will gladly sign those copies and send you one. So
absolutely. I love doing that. Yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Jen. Again, The Inbetween is Everything by Jennifer Collins is a book that everyone needs because we all need to embrace that in between. So thank you for sharing all of your good inspiration and nuggets of wisdom for us all. I know that knowing you has made me a better person, and I know everyone can benefit from your words and wisdom. So thank you so much.